Greetings, everybody. I'm glad to be part of this program today. My name is Dr. Prasad Gourineni. I've been practicing hip preservation for the past 20 years in Chicago and recently started working in Tirupati, India, Andhra Pradesh. My topic today is hip impingement, a common and straightforward entity, both to diagnose and treat. The significance of this talk and the topic is it's more common than you think. It is a clinical diagnosis, purely clinical. Treatment is straightforward. Good outcomes with early treatment. So delayed treatment, obviously, hips do not do that well. Most importantly, it can prevent premature arthritis. This is a very strong belief of mine. Starting with the case example of a total hip. One of the complications is hip dislocation. The most common cause of hip dislocation in total hips is impingement. You see this right acetabulum, the cup is not anteverted or it's retroverted. So when the hip flexes, the neck comes close to the anterior rim of the acetabulum, impinges, and head livers out. The most common cause of hip dislocation is hip impingement in total hips. In traumatic hip dislocation in a native hip, again, you notice the malalignment of the components. The head is not round, has a sagging rope sign and asphericity cam morphology. So this patient probably has decreased hip rotation, internal rotation and flexion. And with trauma that ruptured the posterior capsule and dislocated the hip. Very common to see impinging hip morphology in traumatic hip dislocations. So that introduction, the definition of hip impingement would be, it's a movement-induced, not static, it's movement, motion-induced pain and damage to the hip joint, morphological variation of the bones. The bone shape, size, and tilt may be different, causing hip pain. So to put it simply, pain from normal movements of abnormal bones. It's a conflict between the acetabulum and femur based on their morphology. Instead of being an entity, it's a pathomechanism. Hip impingement is a pathomechanism. Starting the case example, this right hip is overcovered. See the acetabulum completely covering the head. The LCE is measuring about 60 degrees here. Normal is around 30. So the bone between 60 to 30 is extra bone that can cause impingement and that can be removed if you're going to treat impingement. That's the bone that can be removed safely without causing any problems and relieve his hip pain. He's a 15-year-old boy. The 17-year-old man, see the big cam bump in the front? Put a perfect circle on the head. That's the point where the bone goes out of the circle. The cam morphology starts that medial. We draw this alpha angle, the neck axis. Normal is about 45 to 50. Here is close to 90 degrees, very increased. And that big bump on the head neck junction. So risk factors of anterior FAI. My further talk will be only on anterior FAI. There's so many different FAIs, but anterior FAI is probably more than 90%. So we're going to focus on that. So a spherical head, like I showed in that example, a thick neck, again, the same example. Coxa vera brings the neck closer to the acetabulum. And femoral retroversion can all cause FAI. And femoral retroversion can have a normal hip X-ray because it's an axial plane deformity that is not visible on hip X-ray. On the acetabular side, you have anterior overcoverage, can be focal, global, or retroversion that can cause impingement anteriorly. This slide on prevalence. In American athletes, young athletes, 70 to 90% of athletes have cam morphology or some other type of FAI risk factor that I listed earlier. 70 to 90%. But not all of them will impinge. So risk factors are just risk factors. They don't diagnose a condition. Another number, more than 40% of total hip replacements had pistol grip deformity. The cam morphology was seen in more than 40% of total hip replacements. In one study, more than 17% of groin pain was from FAI. But we start including heel scaphy and heel perthes, where the primary disease is gone, and the residual is only impingement. You take people presenting with non-groin pain from FAI and people who present with normal X-rays or relatively normal X-rays, then the number goes way higher. So in groin pain, without obvious X-ray abnormalities, about 50% probably have FAI in my experience. So here's my simplified approach. 3 steps. First step is identify the hip as a source of pain. Not always easy. You need to do a lot of testing to make sure. Number 2 is exclude non-mechanical causes of pain, like AVN, bone marrow edema syndrome, fractures. Third, when it's mechanical, then you have to diagnose impingement over other mechanical causes like chondral lesions and dysplasia. Here are the tools we have for evaluation. History and physical. Very important for FAI. FAI is a clinical diagnosis. Nothing on X-ray, CT, or MRI can diagnose FAI for you. They show risk factors, associations, but do not diagnose FAI. FAI is a clinical diagnosis. Plain X-ray is excellent to show the bone morphology to treat FAI. CT scan is better to show CAN. MRI can show a labral tear, but not diagnostic. But more importantly, it rules out non-mechanical causes. And finally, diagnostic injections when you don't know where pain is coming from. It's a great tool to inject that area with a numbing medicine. So step 1, confirm hip as a source of pain. Hip pain can be referred from spine and pelvic pathology. Here, the hip exam is normal. Hip pain can be referred to the thigh and knee. Here, the hip exam will be abnormal by reproducing the thigh and knee pain, and thigh and knee exam will be normal. Then another presentation is stiff hips, abnormal hips can cause secondary pain in the back and pelvis from a compensatory mechanism. Here, both hips and the back exam will be abnormal. So you use your tools, the 5 tools, to figure out if the pain is actually coming from the hip or not. And local injection is helpful in difficult cases. Second step, now you know it's hip pain, hip joint problem. You want to rule out non-mechanical causes like synovitis, rheumatoid arthritis, AVN, bone marrow edema, chondrodysplasia. MRI, a high-quality MRI, shows all these structures really very well, and all the tissue-specific diagnoses can be easily excluded with a normal MRI. Then when it comes to mechanical pain, you know it's hip pain, it's mechanical pain. Then the different conditions that cause mechanical pain, cartilage defects, loose bodies, these can be seen on X-ray, CT, MRI. Dysplasia is mostly a radiographic diagnosis. Deficient acetabulum or the coxa valga can be seen on X-ray. Impingement is clinical diagnosis. We're going to discuss further. Abductor dysfunction can be seen clinically as a Trendelenburg sign or a gait, and also on X-ray you see a short liver arm or decreased functional length. So now to anti-FAI. The signs of anti-FAI, classic FAI. They have normal gait. They don't usually limp. They have positive impingement sign, very sensitive. Decreased FIR. I'm going to discuss this further. They have decreased internal rotation at 90 degrees of flexion of the hip. Negative apprehension, so no apprehension from instability. So here on the left, you see the flexion, adduction, internal rotation test called impingement sign, and pain at the end range of this motion is positive impingement sign. On the right is anterior apprehension sign for anterior instability, extension and external rotation. The impingement sign is very sensitive, not specific. It's positive in almost all hip conditions. Dysplasia, any labral injury, synovitis, arthritis, they all have positive impingement sign, but becomes specific when you add a few things. It becomes specific when you have decreased flexion, internal rotation, normally about 20 to 30 degrees. Somebody has 0 degrees or external rotation deformity, and that deformity is from a bony block in the groin area, discomfort in the groin, and there's no pain in other direction. This combination, this is 100% anterior FAI. So take this 1 point from me from this talk. If impingement sign is positive with decreased internal rotation, with a bony block in the groin, and no pain in other direction, that has to be impingement. Then my confidence increases because my first step in any surgery is diagnostic. The arthroscopic diagnosis, labral tear, with my clinical exam. Now I'm confident that exam findings correlate very well with intra-articular impingement pathology. So how do you treat impingement? the general goal is to relieve pain and prevent further damage by restoring adequate internal rotation for that hip. If somebody needs 20-30 degrees, you have to restore the 20-30 degrees and remove all cam. No cam should be left behind. So non-surgical measures have a limited role. Activity modification decreases pain. The less active you are, less damage happens to the hip. Raising a car seat, like from a sports car to a SUV, can help. Muscle strengthening helps, but all these are temporary. Surgical treatment is a mainstay if they have a bony pathology. The principle for surgical treatment is remove or reorient the bone, right? Remove the extra bone or reorient the malaligned bone without causing other problems. So I strongly urge, do not leave cam morphology. There's a big cam in the front. This is how the cam should be at the end of the operation. So any surgery you do for FAI should restore normal sphericity of the head, along with other procedures if necessary. Back to our case example, over coverage, right? Increased lateral coverage, removed so much bone to restore normal anterior coverage and correct impingement in this 15-year-old boy. He's a 16-year-old girl, posterior wall is deficient, anterior wall overcovered, so it's a retroverted acetabulum. The treatment is anti-verting PIO. These are femoral cam deformity patient I showed in the beginning. Pre-op, big cam bump, post-op, contour restored arthroscopically. He's a patient with a big head that's not fitting the acetabulum. That's the size we need. So here, the head was reduced in size and reduced back into the acetabulum. How do you do that? Remove a central segment of the head. Remove that segment. Put the two halves back together. Fix them. And reduce into the acetabulum. Here's the bleeding showing that the hip is viable. A moderate scaphy, slipped epiphysis. Femoral osteotomy, arthroscopic femoral osteotomy done here. Two small incisions. Is a more severe scaphy, very bad. You see how the neck is impaled against the anterior wall of the acetabulum, so no arthroscopy here. Open, femoral osteotomy, and realignment. Is a scaphy with instability. There's coxa valga to start with because the opposite hip. So this patient required both a done osteotomy and then a varus in the intertrochanteric area to restore both stability and relieve impingement. Last example, a Porteous hip with oval head, short neck, high trochanter, vestibular dysplasia, and subluxation. This patient gets head neck osteoplasty, neck lengthening, trochanteric transfer, and a PIO. So the modern hip preservation principles are you restore all elements of hip function. Remember that arthritis is inevitable, so avoid creating deformities that make future reconstruction difficult. Thank you for listening.